Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode and we will discuss on digital village. We have our world famous speaker, Mr. Rob, Dr. Talib Raphael, and Mr. David J. Kelly. First, I would like to give chance Mr. Rob, and my question is that what is digital village and what type of feature it has?
Well, it kind of depends on what digital village you're talking about. The underlying concept of a digital village is a group of people that are connected together in some type of group supportive structure with elements of social media, commerce, education. Most of the efforts have a big focus on diversity and inclusion. But there are a couple unique approaches that we might want to explore. One of them is being set up by VCs. It's a metaverse, a digital village, using the Unreal Engine that is supposed to have all those elements, government independent, funded by venture capital. And it looks interesting. It was supposed to launch in 2022. I didn't see it launch. It means the launch is probably delayed or I just missed it. But as you probably know, the metaverse is a little bit behind where people thought it was going to be, and I expect that it's had some impact on that digital village effort. Then there's the 1,000 Digital Village Initiative out of the United Nations, which is also pretty fascinating. A concept to create these things worldwide and really help provide areas that currently lack a lot of depth and technological understanding and capability. Provide them with that, again, focusing on diversity and inclusion and making sure these digital tools are available broadly across the world. So those are the got the concept and two actual efforts that are launching to follow. And that's how I'll start. I'll pass over to Talib.
Thank you. Dr. Talib Raphael, what do you think about digital village, and do you believe that digital village concept will be helpful for emerging economy?
Yes, it will be. It will be definitely. Brings people together from different backgrounds. It's a village, it's a connection, it's a bond that ties everybody together. And I think that it's good for the developing countries because it connects them with the world at large. What you need to have is an internet, of course. Internet is very important in this, because it's digital. So when we have 2/3 of the population sometimes not having internet or electricity, that's a problem, for sure. But the digital village as such is a very good concept. Brings people together. The United Nations, as Rob has said, has adopted the digital village concept. And it's applying it in many organizations. I was heading one of the UN organizations called WTEF, and we had a digital village that spoke about tourism and its impact on people, especially the local communities. It was a very good forum. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor David J. Kelly, what do you mean by digital village? And if you want to share some interesting aspect of digital village, you can share with our audience.
Well, yeah, so I've been actually involved with a couple of organizations that were doing something they called virtual states and trying to organize some of these things on the internet. I think it's an interesting concept, and I think as the world decentralizes, I think that's more and more a possibility with this idea of a digital village or what these other organizations were calling a virtual state, where people can organize themselves via these different kinds of virtual communities online that exist only in cyberspace.
I think I'm good right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where are you speaking from, right David? Where are you speaking from?
Where am I speaking from?
Yes.
Seattle, Washington State.
Okay, good. That's good. Thank you. Okay, David.
Mr. David Smith. Mr. David Smith, can you hear me?
I think he can hear. I think he's frozen. I think he's frozen.
Yes. Mr. Rob.
Well, I think I'm back.
Okay.
The storm challenges are interesting here right now. But what I like, Sharif, can you hear me?
We could
Yes.
keep cutting.
No.
Keeps cutting.
Cutting out. We're getting maybe 2 or 3 words and then a lot of silence and a frozen face.
Okay, so let me see if this works. What I really love about Digital Village is not just its applicability in the metaverse, not just its applicability for those of us in cities, but the true game-changing part of a Digital Village is for the people in the rural environments. Because through the concept of a Digital Village, I can create a much greater sense of community in the rural communities. And they did,
Cutting.
and it was heavily rural with greater. So to me, that was a concept that just really was fantastic. But let me also see if I can connect what's happening with my internet and say more.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rob.
Well, so the concept of the digital village is one of mutual support, and it does require. I mean, it is whether we're talking about the digital village in or within the metaverse construct or out. It's a social structure. It's much like we may eventually have towns and cities in the metaverse that may bear no relation to towns and cities in the real world. Digital village is kind of the start of that. The concept in the United Nations was, so let's see, it was started by the was it FAO? I forgot the
FAO.
yeah, the Food and Agriculture Organization. FAO is the one that started it. So the sorry, who that acronyms will be the death of me eventually, and getting them right consistently is always a problem. But the as a side note, back when I was at IBM, we came to the determination that nobody liked acronyms, and right after that, we spread them like crazy. So kind of showcases the brilliance we had at that time. But in any case, the idea, of course, was to create areas that are currently largely agricultural in their case, and connect them together so that resources could be shared, knowledge could be shared, and these areas that were underperforming agriculturally could improve their productivity and address food shortage issues. The concept, though, isn't just for agriculture. It could be used for much of anything. The goal is to create communities of people that are digitally connected and aligned against the common goal of kind of raising people up and improving their knowledge and capability, and improving them irrespective of the countries they're in or the locations where they live. And because the digital village can be made up of people from any place. Now, in general, at least with the UN efforts, the digital villages tend to be localized, but the concept doesn't necessarily have to be. You could have digital villages of artists, for instance, that are all focused or aligned in the same way, and you have digital villages of artists that are not aligned at all, depending on what the overall goal of the effort is. But it's an expansion of any social construct. It just includes elements of commerce. It includes elements of social media. It includes elements, but they tend to be very fond of cryptocurrency, for instance, as they're spinning up. And perhaps the most interesting of those that are appearing in the metaverse, where they're actually talking about creating these virtual cities in the metaverse, or towns and cities in the metaverse that are made up of people that may be geographically separate, widely geographically separate, but again aligned along similar goals and ideals. So we're still in its infancy, which is kind of why it seems like it's a little bit all over the map. But in the end, the construct, this idea of a construct that exists outside of reality that brings people together of like mind and helps them expand is really no different than how we form towns and cities of old. It's just that we're using a different medium, the digital medium, as opposed to the physical world, and we're able to expand beyond geographic boundaries and the typical physical limitations the real world has for us. So it's a fascinating concept.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you.
Okay, can I speak something?
Yes, sure.
The term village also comes from the connection of people, because in villages, people are connected in a strange way. They are connected more than in cities, and more than people across Atlantics or across the oceans. So village is a very important element here. And as Rob said, it's a concept that ties people that are having the same interest in life. That's why we did it at CU and WTO. We did it for people that are like-minded in developing tourism, per se. FAO did it first. FAO did it for agricultural purposes. And it did very well there. And it connected that with the name of village, because village is a very important element here. In villages, people are connected to each other. But now we're digitally connected. So it's called digital village. So it's not cities per se, but people in cities can join it, of course. That's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Professor David J. Kelly.
Yes.
Yes. We are discussing about this digital village. Dr. Talib Raphael being UN role. And what do you think? Like, who can help more the emerging economy to develop this digital village? You have great experience for working for the largest corporations. So can they involve, like big company can involve to develop this digital village concept?
Sure, they can. Sure, they can evolve. It just depends on what you want this idea of a digital village to become. It's like the people I was mentioning doing the virtual states where they want to have passports and the whole bit. But it just depends on what people want to do with it. And it's going to become a bigger concept, as we build out this idea of a metaverse, and we have these different kinds of digital environments, and people, humans have a need for community. And one of the things in our society now is more and more people are disassociating with people in real life, and or in what they're referring to IRL, or the real world. And if we're going to do that, I mean, humanity is going to have to develop like the digital village concept, or people are going to be alone, and it's not good for people. So whether you're part of a community digitally or part of a community in real life, people need to be around other people, and I think digital village is a great way to help address some of that. And I think it'll be interesting to see how that evolves as a concept, and as it's implemented in different ways by different people and different organizations.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith.
The comments have all been good, and so I agree with your comments. It's about the people. It's about the people no matter where they are located. I was involved with, decades ago, a project with Pacific Bell, back when there was a Pac Bell. And we tried to create an agora marketplace, which was a digital village. In ancient Greek time, the agora marketplace was where the artisans came and did their trades. That's where Socrates lectured and others like that. And this was back in the early days before you saw widespread use of fiber and stuff, where it was like on 1200, 2400, 5600 bauds. Remember those days, Rob? Where, everything was slow. Um, but the idea was tried back then, and it worked in a limited stage in those limited bandwidth days. And today, if I take it where digitalization is high, I mean, we're still only about 50% of the world connected to the internet. So there's a long ways to go.
Yeah.
But the concept of a digital village, and like I said earlier, not only for people who are in urban communities, but I can see digital villages being a game changer in the rural environment to see how they get benefit and can get adoption from it. And it's very interesting to me. One of the big international accounting firms, uh, KPMG, actually has a whole practice area called Digital Village. And they use their digital village concept as a key element of their practice for transformation as well. And so, to me, the concept can not only be used to unite communities, but some of the firms like KPMG is using it within multinational corporations to create digital villages of employees and their suppliers at different parts in the world too. So this has a pretty broad application in many different places. And it can work in a concept of the metaverse, but also can work outside the metaverse, kind of like what Pacific Bell, Pac Bell did back with their early version. But it's important to let people seek others who they can relate to. It's important to create a sense of community. It's important to be able to understand it's not just you playing games on the internet. And digital villages is a great way to take that concept and advance it and do with it. I see in universities where I go and lecture that students often in graduate school create digital villages to help them in their work. Back in my days when I was in grad school, we called them study groups. But today they're moving that concept more to digital villages, and not just within the university, but they're connecting students taking the same course across multiple universities to get the exchange of ideas going and the fusion of ideas. And I love that concept because it does promote group intelligence. And you've heard me say before, group intelligence to me is a game changer. And so digital villages all lead into that and add to that. And you are seeing major corporations move into it. You're seeing firms like KPMG and others really step up and try to use it as even a consulting area and a focused area of their business. So to me, it has a lot of legs and can move rapidly forward. So Sharif, I hope this helps right here.
Thank you, Mr. Rob.
Well, the area of study, since we often talk to students in this show, the area of study that this tends to fall under is digital anthropology. And which is an interesting confluence of technology and the study of people and their interactions, and the digital village is part of that. As we move into virtual worlds, then we move into virtual ethnography, the study of how these worlds are coming up. And the scary thing is as we look at the prior instances of this, the product that predated this was Second Life, which came out decades ago, and really was kind of the core. It's where, before we called anything like this a digital village, it's where we started to explore the concept as a race. And we've been working on it ever since. It would make an obvious class project to create students in different digital anthropology classes or regular anthropology classes together as a class project and connect with other anthropology classes to create a cooperative village across schools to showcase the underlying benefits, and so that students would understand both the powers and the limitations of the capability. Because particularly when you include commerce then underlying concepts like law enforcement, protections against abuse, the diversity of the difference in diversity in the different regions all play a role, and understanding how to work through that and learning that early would be a huge boon to helping kids enter the digital world that they're going to see when they come out of school, which is in flux at the moment. I should point out that education is currently doing a really poor job of preparing kids for the world that will exist when they graduate, and given the rate of change, that's going to be problematic. And this is one of the things that could be used to combat that, allowing students to use the digital tools to self-organize and create a matrix support structure that could not only help them in school, but could help them in their professional lives when they come out, and both showcase the power of a digital village and teach how it can be reliably and safely implemented, so that as they expand into their adult roles, they have this extra resource that they can call upon, and when appropriate, they can be advocates for the concept to help other groups work together collaborative on a broad basis against larger socioeconomic problems. And so in the very end, this could be one of the tools that we could use to make the world a better, more diverse, more inclusive place. And so it's potentially an incredibly powerful tool.
It is.
Thank you, Dr. Talib.
Yes, it's a community building, basically. Community of
Dr.
people that
Talib.
have the similar interest in doing something. And this community can evolve into any way, any shape. Now, what I want to say here is that this probably gives some meaning to all the digital world that we're living in today. Some good meaning. Because yesterday I was having dinner with some friends, and they were talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and how destructive that is going to be for their lives. Now, the digital world has introduced some of that to us, but it also produced a digital village, which connects people together. It's a very important concept. Now, what I want to talk about here is the developing world, because in the developing world, people can connect with the developed world and build some kind of alliances, build some kind of common understanding to things. That could be political, it could be social, it could be economic, could be any part of your life. But the important thing in developing countries is to have the internet itself. When David talked about 50% of the people of the world only have internet, we're a long way to come. And in developing world, this ratio goes up to 70%. So that's excluding so many people around the world. But it includes some of the students. Now, after COVID, we had digital learning now. Digital learning had pushed the issue of internet so well amongst many people in rural area, especially in my country, in Jordan. We all have internets now, and the internets are reliable. Now, how does that help us? It helps us because we can connect with people from universities, from different parts of the world, can connect together. If they are teaching the same thing, they are interested in the same idea. It's a community. Community can be of anybody can be part of this community, and I think it's a bit democratic. I don't think it has any limitations on who joins that community. Digital village is open for everybody, as far as I know. I'm not sure it's the correct information, but it is like that, according to my understanding of it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Talib.
Thank
Dr.
you.
David J. Kelly. Yes, like Dr. Talib, the features of the digital village, if you explain more different features and role of different corporations, especially tech organizations, maybe.
Well, so going back to my own experience with these organizations trying to create virtual states, that I thought it was interesting that they were trying to work out laws to actually make a passports, and there's still a lot of problems with that. It's really the biggest problem with creating these virtual states will be at the UN level, getting other countries to recognize these passports.
Yeah.
Even when they follow, all the appropriate protocols. I know of a couple of different efforts, 3 that I can think of that where they're trying to create virtual states to differing levels of success, but it really depends on having that strong virtual community that is dedicated uh, to really creating it, to driving it. I think in terms of features, if they can, if they, when we get to the point where these communities can um, support their members with the kind of services that governments or states provide, I think it'll enable a lot more interchange with this idea of digital nomad being able to live wherever but be part of this specific community. And I'm just interested to see where it goes. I honestly am not sure, but a lot of people have talked about how over time states or countries in the traditional sense would be less relevant than the digital communities that people are members of.
David, can I ask you a question? David Jack. Does the digital village, does it have any limitation on the membership? Can anybody object to somebody coming in?
Well, I mean, that depends on how you set it up. One of the problems is that humans, from an evolutionary standpoint, can only handle a little bit over 100 people that you really have personal relationships with. So that puts a limit on the size of an individual community just from an evolutionary standpoint. So even if you create like a virtual state, it'll either have to break up into communities or within the state, or it'll.
So it's the size of it. It's the size of it, not the fact that it's democratic or not democratic.
Yeah.
The size of it. Yeah. Thank you, David.
No problem. Back to you, Sharif.
Thank you. Mr. David Smith. Mr. David Smith.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
I can't hear you.
This discussion is so right on, in that it's hitting the key careabouts of what can be done with this. And you have to take the concept of a digital village and put it in the context of how it can enact change. Digital villages can be used for education. They can be used for rallying people together. They can be used in companies to manage and transform complex things. It's in many of the things we talk about, it gets back to the people. It gets back to the education of how to use concepts like digital village. It gets back to the regulatory environment, is that can what we do at a digital village be treated as a legitimate contract? Does it need smart contracts? What is privacy? Privacy is going to be a big impact in digital villages. So as you look at those have to be taken into account. And Dr. Cleave, you were so right. It gets down to the people, and we've got to make sure the people get around. And Rob's done an excellent job of talking some of the technical elements around it. But I think we're going to continue to see the concept of digital villages expand, just like the concept of digital twins is continuing to expand dramatically right now. So, Sharif, I think that's a comment right now.
Thank you. Mr. Rob.
So when we talk about companies and digital
Mr. Rob.
villages, we'll go back to the KPMG construct that I think David Smith brought up initially. They have a digital village organization, and perhaps their most interesting implementation was in Singapore back in 2016, when they brought together investors, customers, and providers into a digital village to drive forward innovative approach to automotive insurance. Companies tend to be focused on goals, and often that has to do with launching new products, opening new markets. But the digital village concept has proven, at least with that example, to be relatively successful. It is unusual when you're trying to bring up a new company to have a critical mass of investors that understand the concept the company's coming up, customers that want to buy the concept, and people that want to work on building the concept and creating a company. That tends to traditionally come together in an ad hoc fashion, where you can get a startup that launches and discovers it has no customers, or it launches and discovers it's missed the mark with what the customers wanted in terms of the product. And you can have other issues like them being underfunded, overfunded, inadequately staffed, all causing company failure. And the digital village concept, if it's properly moderated, can reduce the probability of any of those outcomes happening and better assure that the company, if launched and created, will be successful, because a lot of the groundwork to assure that success, instead of being done after the company is up and running, is done before the company is even funded. And so the company has a much better chance of being structured to meet the market need that at least exists at the time that it's being conceived. Granted, that market need can change during its development, but if the digital village concept remains in place, then the company will be aware of those changes and be better able to address them coming out the back end. And so this collaborative, digitally connected structure can have a very positive impact on either trying to open up an environment to new technology, new concepts, and new innovative products, or in just simply launching a new company into an existing mature market, by assuring that the investors, the customers, and the employees are all on the same page with regard to what it is they're building and how they're going to execute. And so much breakage typically occurs in a company or region launch. Everything from not really understanding the culture, reminded of when Japan and China first, well, China really hasn't made it yet, but Japan first launched automobiles in the United States. They missed the mark horribly. And then eventually they built design structures in California, and Toyota went from being a failure to being a bigger success at times than General Motors. And with the digital village concept, that kind of thing can be done up front. You don't have to have the painful learning experience of a market mix, because you've addressed that through a collaborative structure that included the customers, and so you have a much better idea of what it is you need to build before you actually start building it. And so in the end, the digital village concept, at least as being conceived by companies, maybe more product, services, and revenue focused, but it still has shown a significant capability in terms of assuring success and assuring the outcome that you should want if you're trying to build a company or concept.
Thank you, Dr. Talib Raphael.
Well, I think Rob never surprises us when he speaks about companies. He tries to connect everything to the private sector, to the companies. And he did in this regard. What I'd like to do is tie it to more cultural understanding. And that's important to the world today, because cultural understanding builds the bridges between people of different cultures around the world. Now, that's important if the topic of the village is a particular topic. Like in any village, if there is a grain, if there is something, the product that combines people together, this digital village would combine people that have the same interests together in democracy, for example, in governance, in leadership, as we spoke about in many of our previous events. Now, how does that help us? It helps us because we could design digital villages any way we want. It seems like I understood from David Kinjakili. It's up to the people that put it together. There must be a driver behind it. There must be somebody that drives this, because otherwise it won't work. Then people would come in and join that village. Now, who is the person that starts it? And how does he start it? He or she start it? That's important questions to ask. And I think I'd stop at this point, hear what Rob has to say, what David Jackley has to say. Thank you.
Mr. David Jackley.
Yes.
Yeah, so David Jackley actually, I think Dr. Talib Rafin on technology, and beside that, if we think about the Indian economy, example, me and Dr. Talib Rafal facing problem with internet connections and everything. So, so how do you think the digital village will work and how we can solve this kind of problem? So grassroots level face lot of challenges and problem.
Well, it's only really practical within the bounds of the internet. If you don't have good access, you can't really participate in a virtual community very well. I think as we globalize more with services like Starlink and Amazon's whatever they're calling it, and these different other services where we basically bring wireless internet to everywhere on the planet, I think that that's kind of an enabling factor. And if we can't do that, anywhere that doesn't have good internet connection is not going to be part of these virtual worlds or metaverses or whatever, digital villages or virtual countries or any of that stuff, because it all is based on that internet access. And so
the digital part.
That's right. And I think that's where you get to an argument about whether, internet access is a human right or not. The more we start relying on these digital communities, the more internet access becomes a need and not just a want.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to really ensure that everyone has good internet access anywhere on the planet to enable these kinds of things.
That is right.
David, I agree with you. So,
Mr. David.
thank you, Sharif. David, I agree with you so much there, and we can see even with my challenges this week here in Austin, where I have gigabit Ethernet, but yet still have challenges with part of it today and stuff like that. If I look at last year, the global internet penetration passed 5 billion people. So we're well on the road of pushing global internet. But as we've seen many times with this program, the fact that we can access the internet does not mean we have the quality of service, nor do we have the bandwidth, nor do we have the ability to have consistent internet services. One of the things with the war in Ukraine that was very satisfying to me was how quickly the Ukraine could implement alternative ways to access the internet. And part of it was with Elon Musk's Skynet. Part of it was with some other providers. Part of it was how do I set up and create mesh networks that are self-healing. And I have a feeling that as we go further down our path to Web 3.0, the next generation internet and everything, we're going to see increasingly more networks that become more self-healing and that will create a redundancy of paths for when to help us path around more the latency, path around congestion, path around where denial of service attacks are happening, and other things like that. And we'll do that. But just remember, as I said before, one of the big marketplaces for digital villages is the rural communities. And these are traditionally the ones that are least served by high-speed internet. And so, David, it's not just wireless internet. It's really more the concept of long-distance wireless internet that's going to be making some of the differences in there. And particularly when I look at that, we're going to have to go to a concept of a more edge of cloud, more mesh network to make digital villages work, and make the metaverse work in the rural communities. And I think you're going to see that. My company was involved with trying to put high-speed internet into some rural areas of some very poor countries. We were doing that in Haiti before the last earthquake. And it's difficult in environments. We could not put fiber in the ground or copper in the ground that stayed in the ground because it was dug up and stolen to sell. And so we decided we could no longer use a method like we were using, for example, in North America there. But we're going to see that with the same way as we look at the digital access around digital villages. The first 5 billion people connecting to the internet was pretty straightforward. The last 40% of the people connecting to the internet is going to be the difficult challenge. And we need to solve that to implement a true digital village.
One comment, as it happens, the underlying basis for the internet is a self-healing network. So in general, it's just a matter of getting more than one line or source into an area.
David, you're right, but I'm talking about last mile.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is you've got to get multiple sources for that network to self-heal.
Right,
Otherwise, the TCP/IP structure won't work.
I agree with you.
We're doing that.
That's right. Sharif.
Thank you. Mr. Rob, what's your concluding remarks for today's session?
Sure. By the way, I was mentioning the corporate focus because I thought that was the nature of the question that I was given. Because the digital village can be anything. In its broad sense, it's simply a construct. It's a group of people that come together for a common goal. And as Lee pointed out, the goal is to keep that group of people relatively small, thus village rather than city or town or something along those lines. So it's manageable. But if you're gonna ask for corporate support, you have to recognize where corporations are focused, and they tend to be very goal focused. They're focused on revenue. They're focused on product. They're focused on advancing the things that the executives are measured on, and they're measured on product success, margins, revenue, and those kinds of constructs. And so if you work within those constructs and you recognize the limitations of the corporations, then you also know where they'll be good and where they won't. I'm asking, for instance, General Electric to help on a program for agricultural advancement in Africa. Probably won't have much impact on General Electric unless it's connected to their need to launch a particular product in that region that connects with the underlying effort. And so the recognizing that if you need corporate support, you need to fall within their goal structure. Otherwise, you're over with their philanthropy group, and philanthropy groups tend to be all over the map with regard to where they're interested in a given point in time, and often those philanthropy efforts are tied to larger political constructs to advance some larger initiative. And understanding all of that can let you know whether you're going to waste your time or whether you have an angle or a lever. to get the corporation involved and contributing, and all of that's critical if you want to be successful with bringing in businesses. But the concept of a digital village can be anything. You could have a monarchy in a digital village. It really does. There's no rule that says you even have to be diverse. You could have a digital village of all white supremacists if you wanted. I'm not suggesting that any of us should belong to such a thing, but the construct can be brought around any area of interest. It's just that most of these efforts have been focused on diversity and inclusion and trying to get areas that are underserved to, in a way, ramp up and help serve themselves. If you recognize if you're an emerging economy and you're always dependent on somebody else, that somebody else kind of owns you. And to get to a point where you can be self-supportive, that takes away that ownership and control. And often some of the countries that take major initiatives and go into emerging areas, they have their own interests at heart. China goes in and helps, but often it's to get exclusive access to unique resources in the area, or to control the area that they're helping, and that's the trade-off. And you have to be, if you're gonna dance with the devil, don't be surprised if they step on your feet. It's getting to that point where you can own your own destiny. I think is important to any group, and the digital village concept can both help or hinder that effort depending on who's behind it and what the overall goals and motivations are. And always, when you're getting involved in any effort, you really need to step back and make sure you understand the goals and motivations of those that are driving the effort to make sure they're in line with what it is you want to accomplish. Otherwise, you may find you put in a lot of effort to do something that is not in your best interest. And so digital village is an amazing concept. It can be used for good, arguably could be used for bad too. It's like any underlying effort. It isn't inherently good or bad. It really depends on the people that are implementing it and taking care to making sure that implementation is focused on the things that you want it focused on before you get involved in it is probably a very important first step that I'll bet a lot of people miss.
Sharif. I think Sharif is frozen.
And it looks like Sharif's watching cat videos.
Dr. Talib, what's your concluding remarks for today?
Well, I want to say, first I want to just answer Rob. I did not say that he is interested in companies as a criticism at all. You know that. I meant that you are specialized in this kind of thing, and that's very important. Because our discussions cannot come to any conclusion if we don't have the private sector fully engaged in it. And Rob is doing that, unfortunately. Fortunately. Now, about the digital village, it's a community of people. As Rob said, it could be gathered around something good or something bad. But mostly so far, it's been implemented by something good. That's what the practice has shown us. Now, the internet is an important element here, but I think that's another reason for us to spread the internet as fast as we can, so that we don't have the 50% that David talked about of people that don't have internet at all. That's important. The digital village is the bright side of digital world altogether, because it brings people together, brings people of similar interests together. It's a community of people. That's what it is. Thank you so much. Thank you, David. Sharif.
Thank you. Thank you for doing this session.
David.
David Kelly, you're up.
Oh, I'm
Thank
up?
you. Okay. Yes, you're up.
Kelly?
Okay, well, one thing I was thinking about, actually, Rob just alluded to, is kind of the negative thing about or bad actors that could use these kinds of technologies like digital villages to manipulate and control people. And I actually participated in a research project a couple of years ago, and actually the kinds of stuff you could do now is just really scary with the internet and controlling people. And I've actually got what's called a responsibility bracelet on my wall from that project that would help you with your right thinking. And just the fact that you can use technologies like this to manipulate how people think about ideas is kind of, I don't know. We need to be careful. That's all I'm saying. That the technology could be abused.
Yes. David, I think you're next.
David, you hit right where I normally talk about too, when I talk about security, regulations, compliance, privacy, is it can be very easily abused in environments like this. So it's a balancing act. Can we take the benefits of a digital village in all its very phases of it, of being a community builder, to being a collaborative tool, to being an education tool, to being a transformational tool, and can we balance against those? And we know we still have technology challenges that have to go. And because of the technology challenges, we also have an equality challenge. And we need to make sure that as we look at digital villages, the concept of equality works into it as well. And equality and inclusion kind of go hand in hand with the concept of a digital village. And it's one that I believe we'll see many thesis written around the concept of digital villages, particularly as digital villages populate through the metaverse, and we see the metaverse become more and more mainstream. But the concept is great. I love the sense of community. I mean, humans were not meant to live in isolation. And that is the concept that digital villages bring to us, is how to create the sense of community, how to create senses of purpose, how to share our knowledge, how to share our competencies and capabilities. And that is what will define whether digital villages are successful or not the technology, but can we meet those goals that I've just talked about, and can we use it to make a difference? I believe that we need to always look to what actions we can take when we have areas like the digital village, because if we don't take action, then the discussions are great, but at the end of the day, action is what's needed to change the world. And I think this is one of the tools we can have to take action. So,
Very
Sharif,
true.
thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharif, again.
Thank you.
Thanks for bringing us together once again.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Talib, Mr. Robbie, Mr. David J. Kelly, and Mr. David Smith for your continuous support for World Talent Economy Forum. And we are developing Digital Village, with the support of FAO, Bangladesh developing 30 digital villages. So if you have a better solutions and you want to collaborate with World Talent Economic Forum to join this digital village concept, thank you. Bye-bye and take care.
Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye, y'all.